Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Open Book Entrepreneur. I'm really happy that we have Nigel Herman today. He is a specialist in data-driven systems, and he is helping companies scale in that way. So, Nigel, please introduce yourself to our audience.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, my name is Nigel here. I've been doing this business working with entrepreneurs, typically in the high six-figure to seven-figure range, are looking to scale to that next level. And we do it with the data-driven systems so that they can do it profitably and predictably, right? Because a lot of times, most companies fail in that scaling season because they don't know their numbers. And everyone knows the importance of numbers, yet very, very low majority of companies actually are data driven. And it's, I think, something super important because I'm a big fan of Shark Tank. If you watch Shark Tank, they say like first things they always ask you, what are your numbers? What are your numbers? So if you don't have numbers, very unlikely that you're going to be scaling predictably, right?
Exactly, that's 100% true. And also for our audience, can you tell us a little bit more about how did you decide to start this business of data systems and analysis?
Yeah. Through pain. because because funny enough, I am not a numbers person initially. Like I was actually the opposite of that. I actually failed math in high school. And so I was the opposite of a numbers person. I was like completely not data driven whatsoever, and I hated numbers. And so I ran a lead gen agency before, and it was for martial arts studios, martial arts schools, and I ended up signing one of the biggest franchises in the world, like over like 3,000 locations worldwide. And it was great. But long story short, what was really painful was that they were very data driven, and I wasn't. And I took them through a kind of a challenging time. It was through 2020, like the start of COVID, literally the start of COVID when the world shut down. My job was to market for martial arts schools and show people like how you should get as close to someone as possible to learn to choke someone out rather than social distancing. And so I was kind of challenged with that task. But they were the owners were always grilling me about the numbers, right? And I knew the basic numbers, but I didn't really know exactly what I was talking about, and they could tell. And so, long story short, I mean, this was my first year in business, really, too, and I was very just learning the ropes. But they end up churning, right? And so that was one of the most painful lessons I experienced. And it was funny because when I ran the agency Monday to Friday, I was running the day to day. On the weekends, I was building systems. And then I enjoyed building systems so much. And it kind of dawned on me one day that I was like, huh, every business needs systems. Like, this is actually something I'm good at. Why don't I just build systems for businesses? And so I started building systems for businesses, and I still stayed away from the data because in my head, I'm not a numbers guy. I failed math, right? I hate numbers, blah, blah, blah. I had all these limiting beliefs in my head. Um, but then one day I read a book. I read a book called The E-Myth by Michael Gerber. It's just about like scaling with small businesses and whatnot. Great book. And he said this one line that really spoke to me. It really changed the whole trajectory of my business. And he said something along the lines of, businesses are run by systems and systems are run by people, right? And so it just kind of clicked to me. And I was like, huh. It's like, what if the reason why I am not good at numbers and is not because I'm not the best at numbers per se or math, which I wasn't, but I wasn't like terrible. I was like, I did fail, but when I wanted to focus on it, I was able to understand that. But what it alerted to me was that maybe it's just because the systems that I'm on are kind of flawed. And so that was like the light bulb moment where I was like, what if I could just build a system that's so easy to understand that someone like me that is not naturally good at numbers, that failed math, can actually have this system and understand the numbers and actually use it to scale my business. And so it's just kind of crazy how now I've kind of 360 and I actually coach businesses on their data now. So that's kind of like how I got into it, not because of passion or anything like that, right?
I mean, this is fantastic to hear because most of the guests here are talking about like how they got into their business because of the passion and stuff, and you really you're completely opposite, but still I believe you love what you do now and you enjoy it because the way you're actually explaining and talking about that, it sounds like it.
Yeah. It's become a complete 360. Now I love talking about systems and data because I've just reframed it because it's not necessarily numbers, it's the system, right? And I love building systems. So
Exactly. Yeah. So can you tell us, please, a little bit like about your successes in business? Like, what's been your biggest success in business so far?
it's kind of crazy because I never imagined I'd be working with companies that are seven-figure, eight-figure companies. Like I worked on this project with this guy in the UK. His name's Peter Sage. They were doing like $1 million a month, and we had to automate their entire data tracking system, their sales team, right? So they had multiple team members, and they needed us to just go in there because their CRM was completely messed up. It's crazy where you see these big companies and they're like running on these systems that are like so unorganized. And like, you guys have scaled to your company using this. It's all manual work. And so what we did was just automate that entire process so that they have their numbers. Or another company, they were doing about 800K a month. Uh, their CRO and their COO, um, they were working on two completely different data systems. They both had their own, they were both working on spreadsheets essentially, right? They both had their own spreadsheets. And once a week, they actually had a meetup every single week and spend about 2 hours a week just figuring out the numbers, why some numbers are skewed or what this number means, or why is this number missing, and they just every single week, 2 hours a week. And so, if you have two executive level team members spending 2 hours per week, that's a lot of time, right? And so what we did is same thing, we automated everything. So now that they're all operating off one central dashboard where the entire company has access to it, where it's easy to understand, easy to read, and now not only are they not meeting once a week anymore, they just go to the dashboard and they can see exactly what the numbers are. But the CRO he told me that we help them save 2 hours per day, not per week. We save 2 hours per day in his own data tracking system because he was working with the sales team, and that was a whole mess. That was a whole nother thing. So we saved 2 hours, so about 10 hours a week, or 10 hours a week with the CRO, and then we save about 4 hours per week for the CRO and the COO. And so that he told me that allowed him to spend more time with his clients, train the sales team, just work on the things that are actually more needle movers rather than fidget with spreadsheets and look at numbers and all day. So
Absolutely. That's great. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I can imagine how many businesses would actually benefit from these kind of things. And also I know that it's difficult as well. Like when you're starting up and stuff, you're not really focused on this kind of things. So you just build up your business, you make sales, you do all the other things that businesses are doing, and then you come across and you're like lost in all the data and numbers and everything. And it looks like that's where you come in and just like help them out. And that's
yeah.
sounds fantastic. So we also, for our audience, because we are talking about like entrepreneurial journey and you being an owner of business and, sort of like going to different niches and everything. Can you tell us, please, how do you deal with like some, when something goes wrong in your business, how do you deal with that?
When something goes wrong in my business, it's really about identifying what the problem is, like where to focus, and then what lever we can pull to unlock that, either solve that constraint or that bottleneck, and really just focusing on one bottleneck at a time, right? So we follow like the theory of constraint. So what we do is we map out, let's say like the customer, we map out the entire journey. So let's say like a sales and marketing, or sorry, let's say like a client's journey, right, from start to finish, right? And then what we do is we have benchmarks. So we know what numbers we want to be hitting based on like industry averages, right? And so we actually build up an AI system with our dashboards that can identify where the bottlenecks, where the constraints of the business are, right? And so that you can focus all your attention on that constraint, opening that up so that that allows more flow into the next stage. And then we'll see like where the next constraint is. So it's just an ongoing process of like improvement, right? And so that's been really helpful because I'll give you another quick example. We had like one client that they got to about 100K a month, um, strictly through sales and marketing. They're very good closers, right? A very good sales team, right? And we were looking at their numbers and they wanted to improve their closing rate. And they were crushing it. They were like 40% close rate, their sales team. And they want to improve their close rate, but their show rate was almost the same as their close rate. It was like 40 something percent. And so, I always say like, the surgeon always wants to cut, the pharmacist always wants to prescribe pills, and then like, the closer wants to close. So they always want to work on what they're good at. But what they're good at got them to where they're at, but it's not necessarily going to get them to the next level. And so instead of focusing on the close rate, which would have been, they could have gone from 40 to 45 to 50. That's great, 10% gain. But if they just improve their show rate, which is a much easier thing to fix than like the close rate, then they would have got exponentially more results. And so that's what we did. We just helped them focus on where the business needs attention, not where they want to improve, right? Because sometimes the business is going to need different things than what their thinking is. So we help them focus on that.
Yeah,
So.
absolutely. I mean, that's great. And, focusing definitely on a show-up rate on the sales calls is massive because we also in our business struggled with that a few years back. And now, the show-up rate is about 90%. And that's a massive, massive difference. So absolutely. But these guys, obviously, they're closing at 40%. That's quite good as well. So well done on that. So what's your goal for what's your vision for your business for next 3 to 5 years?
I really want to build a community, a data-driven community. Our mission is really to help companies become data-driven because so few companies that I've seen are truly data-driven. And then I always ask like, why do the vast majority of companies fail to become data-driven? Because everyone knows the importance of data and numbers, right? You go on Shark Tank, like I said, first thing they ask you, what are your numbers, right? But I've only seen, honestly, from our experience, only about like 10% of companies that have a really good centralized dashboard that is easy to understand, easy to read, and accessible for the whole team. And so what it came down to of why companies fail to become data driven was actually because of three things. Was number one was because of the actual team, like the people, right? Number two was because of the systems, and number three is a big one, is because of the culture, right? So I used to think it was like, oh, there's not enough good technology and stuff like that. But we have CRMs, like you can like Google it and there's a million different CRMs that do this, right? But when it comes down to those three things, it's the people that are actually using the systems, because a lot of time they don't understand what the numbers are, or they have a different interpretation of what this number means compared to other people. So if you give people their own interpretation of like what these metrics mean, they're gonna calculate it differently, right? And then numbers get skewed. And then the systems, a lot of times the systems are just like very messy, a lot of manual work, spreadsheets, different softwares, they're all scattered out. They don't talk to each other, right? And it can be very confusing for someone to learn. And then the third one is the culture, right? So to have a data-driven culture, I believe culture is created from the top down. So if the leaders of the company become data-driven, then everyone else falls into place after that. But if not, then it's just wild and it's just like very chaotic, which is where most companies are. So that's my mission over the next 3 to 5 years is I want to really help companies become more data driven. We want to work with we want to work with around like 100 a year, right? So over the next 3 to 5 years, we'd love to hit like 500 to 1,000 companies become data driven. So that would be a huge goal of ours.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for sharing that. And also, just if anyone wants to actually get in touch with you or connect to you, or find out a little bit more about how you can help their companies with data, like how they can do that.
Yeah, so you can connect with me on Facebook or LinkedIn. We also right now, for anyone that's interested, currently right now in January, we have space for we're doing this free thing right now. It's a free challenge essentially where we'll actually help build a dashboard, an AI dashboard in your business for free. And so we only have a capacity for about like 5 more companies to do this for. But if anyone wants that and have an AI dashboard that tells you, that summarizes your numbers, forecasts them for you, and identifies bottlenecks for you, then just hit me up on Facebook or LinkedIn.
Fantastic. Yeah, thanks a lot. And I'll share this links below in the description as well. So thank you, Nigel, for being a guest, for sharing your story, for sharing your vision with our audience. And also thank you all for watching, and see you in the next episode.
All right. Thanks for having me, Tony.